Okay, thank you very much, and welcome to the. Thank you very much, Wouter. I think we're going to talk about the future of circularity today. So I think a really interesting topic, and I'm really excited to have this panel of pan-European people who actually are doing are let's say shaping the future of circularity at the moment. So thank you all for having us and being there in this session as well. As I already told, Arnoud is not there. He's unfortunately struck by COVID. He's okay, but yeah. So I'm going to be the host today. My name is Jeroen van Muiswinkel. I'm working together with Arnoud at KPMG Sustainability in the Netherlands, and actually on the topic of circularity already for quite some years. So yeah, happy to host this session. But I'm even more pleased to have a couple of people in the room who really are doing circularity at the moment. First of all, I think Ignasi Cubiña, co-founder, director of Eco Intelligence Group. Yeah, I think also a long-time cradle-to-cradle specialist, and also founder of what they call he's calling the lean-to-cradle methodology. So yeah, let's talk about that later on. Moreover, I think Cédric Borel is there from from France, due to from initiative called The Booster, and that's a French-based dude tank. That's interesting. We're going to talk about that, but on the economic valorization of reuse of materials. So that's also thank you, Cédric, for being here. And last but not least, Cyril Schlesser, a colleague of mine and partner at KPMG Corporate Finance and Real Estate in France. And what I've been told, and we're going to hear about that, an expert on alternative financing in the real estate market and also on the immaterial value of the circular economy. So interesting to hear more about that. Let me start with giving you a little bit of a setting of what we're going to talk about today. It's about the future of circularity, as we already said. And I think circularity, what I've been experiencing is that it's I hear a little bit of echo, Ignasi. Maybe you can mute it. Yeah, that's better. Thanks. You're going to have your turn later on. Now we're going to talk about circularity today, and I think it's a hot topic these days in building and construction. What I see is that there's a lot of theory going on, but I like to talk today also about practicalities and how you can actually do circularity. Today we're living in a linear circular economy, and for instance, if you talk about some of you perhaps know the Circularity Gap report, which actually states that the world today is only 8.6% circular. So we have still a lot to go for. What I also there is a recent World Economic Forum publication which also shows a little bit on what is happening in the building and construction environment, and that indicates actually that there are 4 materials: steel, cement, chemicals, and aluminium, which are responsible for 60% of the global emissions. So that's an interesting figure, and we're going to talk about that probably later on. And another, it also states that in order to live up to the Paris Agreement, the 2050 target of max 1.5 degrees of Celsius temperature rise, significant reductions has to be made for all those four materials. And if you talk about reductions, it's really going to be a massive reduction as well, because, for instance, steel has to be reduced by 97% in order to meet our own set target. So that's interesting. And for instance, cement is also 78% less. So I think it's interesting today to talk about how we can actually do that. And I think that's it requires a massive amount of, let's say, innovation, rethinking, and that's actually where the circular economy comes in as well. So yeah, it's also about business modeling. How can we create creative business modeling? So maybe Cyril can update us on that. But yeah, so I think big, huge step for us, but also plenty of opportunities, I think. And today we're going to discuss a couple of actually people in the field to talk about what they are doing to create this circular economy. So let's start a panel discussion, and maybe I can invite the gents to join. Maybe first question, because Ignasi, you developed the lean to cradle methodology. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, and also a little bit on, okay, how do you make that practical with your clients?
Well, thank you, Susan, for giving me the floor. So I don't know if you noticed that, but in your, in your foot page says Susan van Wissenbeckel. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, that's my wife actually. KPMG blocking somehow. It's blocking Zoom, but this is my private account. So
sorry for the quick joke. Cédric made that joke already. Yes. Well, long story short, as you have already mentioned, I've been a cradle-to-cradle practitioner for more than 15 years now. And being a practitioner, one of the things we found out is that if you want to really get a transformation, and you want to get transformation all around the value chain, you need two things. You need to have a language and a dialogue with the different stakeholders, and you need to have a methodology, because otherwise it's hard to convince people to, adopt a different language or a different vision of things, So, when we merged with Grupo Constructiva, which is a holding construction group, back in 2012, the first thing we found is that we needed to define a roadmap for how to implement a cradle-to-cradle circularity strategy in not only in the built environment, but also including the real estate development vision, So at that time, the general contractor, they had already a lean construction strategy. So they adapted the lean manufacturing into lean construction. So they had already this kind of, this way of increasing efficiency, minimizing risk, and optimizing the process. This is my ego.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Please continue.
So they already had this philosophy, this methodology, but that was focused on a linear model. So they were good on having an effective, efficient process to deliver spaces and buildings in the linear model. That means that minimizing the risk and increasing the value of designing, execution, and delivering a building or a building space. But there was nothing about what is the next use and what is the future value of that space or that building. So what we started to do is think about, okay, how we can move into a cradle-to-cradle vision. And then, the lean-to-cradle methodology came to the scene, So what we did is that we enhanced this linear vision into a full cycle cradle-to-cradle vision. And then by doing that, it was a kind of a gap-filling analysis, So we were filling a lot of the gaps in our relationship with the supply chain, in our relationship with the real estate developers, in our relationship with the investors. So we decided to develop a methodology to put all the stakeholders in the same page, and not just designing and executing, but also maintenance, and how we can increase the value of the asset, and how we can transfer this value perception to the market. And by the way, this is why we developed this co-development with you guys in order to also develop synergies and how to measure, impact on the real estate market, especially what we call the non-financial indicators, And then we develop our circular value vision for the business value and the non-financial value, which in the end of the day is market value for everyone. So in practice, what we do is that we are aligning our operations with the ultimate goal of having the highest value possible in the buildings and the spaces we're executing and maintaining.
And can you give a concrete example on how you actually this lean to cradle, how you put that into practice on, for instance, a building or a real estate asset?
Yeah, I can tell you this is a good example. Typically, we do a lot of retrofitting of buildings. This is our, I mean, it's probably 60% of our activity, but in the last couple of years, we also doing quite a lot of new construction because there's a need of, especially for mixed-use buildings in the area now. So we just built up, I mean, 1 year ago, we built up a new commercial building for mixed uses. And well, we had already, I mean, the project was already designed. So what we do, we were aligning all the different players in the project with a circular vision. So we were getting all our suppliers into a qualification rating system. So most of the material and product suppliers, they got cradle certified. Some they didn't, but still we were running a qualification methodology for them based on the cradle principles. So and then we developed what we call an IDP, integrated development project that was putting together. Well, this is the way to try to find consensus in this complex environment, you know. So one of the reasons to do that is because we wanted to develop a blueprint for the developer. That was the first time we were working with the developer. So this project, we took it as a blueprint, and we developed a material passport. That was the first time we had a digital material passport for a new building. So just to give you an idea, we were dealing with 21,000 tons in total, which 9,000 were, I think probably Cédric will elaborate more on that, 9,000 were materials installed in the building, you know, and about 4,000 were products that we have registered in our database, and we are bringing a residual value, and we are doing all the qualification rating system, you know. So now we have a material passport where we know what all the bits and bolts of the products are being located, you know, and we are trying to put additional layers because we're doing the facility service as well. So we are already operating the building, and just by chance, because it was a mixed use and we didn't have a tenant when we were developing the project, just the first tenant, we found out he wanted to change the layout of the building. So in day one, we already had to remove some of the partition walls. So we were already implementing the resource management based on our material passport information.
Great, yeah, thanks.
This was already a demand-driven type of situation.
No, but I think it's great, and I know that you're doing that together with your clients. So that's thanks for that, for sharing that example. Maybe over to Cédric. Cédric, because I was talking about the booster and about the 1% who is only reused at the moment, and I think the booster is somehow connected to that. So what's actually the mission of the booster?
The mission of the booster is a community of practice of one of the biggest values and portfolios, Europe-based, but mainly in France, to prescribe and use reused materials. In the past years, there have been a considerable effort for intelligent deconstruction and refurbishing, with refurbishment into the real estate market. So the deconstruction, there's a lot of materials that appears that can be used in other buildings. So it was the first. So landlords are coming with more and more materials being deconstructed intelligently, and which can be reused. So, but what is not in the market, that's why the booster is a demand side initiative. It's that there's no easy way to prescribe and use reuse materials. It doesn't come in mind of prescriptors, designers, landlords, etc. So the community of practice aims to develop this demand of reused materials and then make appear, that's why we're working with you, KPMG, the considerable residual value that reusable material brings with, and the great carbon savings it makes. So, but we have to build this community of practice of how to ask for reused materials. And today we are seeing with more than 150 projects that are coming to the boosters in the past 9 months and for the coming year. We begin to see tons of materials coming from a building going to another. And this material is about carpet tiles, raised floors, lots of architectural, inner architectural articles and products. And then we are asking, it's just crazy because we are coming to a residual price of this in the business modeling. You said previously, the business modeling is changing in every aspect because asset managers are becoming, let's say, goods or material managers also, and they can chase for a residual value at the end of the lease. There is something about amortization. Their savings on not producing waste. There is savings on carbons, huge considerable savings on carbon. So it seems that this reuse material and circular economy will be a masterpiece of the new business model of asset management in the future. So, but practically, we are beginning to see carpet tiles which were just managed to be transported from one floor to another floor of the buildings. They are just coming from a building and going to another building because a lot of products, as Ignasi mentioned in the passport, a lot of products are designed industrially to be maintained, to have a good maintenance, etc. So it's a super opportunity to bring circular economy into the real estate business model.
Yeah. And the booster really brings together like a community of practice, which you said. You bring together the demand side, or is it the full value chain?
There's a lot of initiatives on offer side because everybody finds who is looking for materials can find materials into the building which are refurbished. So what we're lacking is a demand side management. So we built a web platform in order to make the demand known of everybody who wants to propose its material. And there is more than 70 initiatives to bring materials on the offer side, but there were no initiative on the demand side. This is the gap we are feeling.
I totally agree. I think it all starts with the right demand. Yeah. Thank you for that. And maybe Cyril, can you elaborate a little bit on what your role is in that, or what KPMG's role is in that?
Sure, thanks a lot. Well, listening to Ignasi and Cédric's purposes, it's obvious that circular economy in the real estate sector is going to have huge impacts on profitability, on sustainability, and on financial valuation. And that's basically what we do on a day-to-day basis, try to factor all these aspects into the business models, the business plans of the assets themselves. And basically, it's all about understanding the impact that circular economy could have on the financial life cycle of an asset. And when you think about the life cycle, basically it gets started with the conception, the construction, then you have all the operating phase, and then you have the hand cycle, which very often in our minds comes with a sale. But when I listen to Cédric and Ignasi, it's clear that it's not only a sale, it's the consideration of disconstruction or disassembly these assets. And very often this is not factored in business plans. And I think that for asset managers, fund managers, investors, this needs to be properly factored in the future. This will require data, obviously, and the data to be factored exist, but still needs to be strengthened, to be knowledgeable, available, and then once again factors in all these business plans. I think another thing that we need to bear in mind is the fact that a business plan is today very constrained, first of all, by sustainability and environment regulation. When you look at the new green European taxonomy, it's clear that we are now in a world of constraints that needs to be once again taken into account by contracting authorities, property developers, investors. We are in the constraint of margins. I mean, it's clear that most of our clients, they are facing tight yields, they are facing increase in construction cost. And the question here is, all these changes which are ahead of us will be a boon or a bane for these margins and this financial profitability. And here, Ignasi and Cédric's actions are critical, definitely. First of all, to enhance collaboration, create market platforms. That's important for this circular economy to be a reality. And obviously to bring benchmarks, data that will help us to convince, if they are not convinced yet, all the stakeholders that they need to engage and make it real.
Yeah, thanks. Totally agree on that. And maybe also for the sake of time, because thank you very much for your, let's say, introduction, but we're also we have a half an hour, so maybe the topic for today is the future of circularity. And maybe question to all three of you is, if you have to name one thing that is really critical in for the future of circularity, what would that be? And maybe Ignasi, I can start with you. What would your one thing be on that would be critical for the future of circularity?
Well, in my opinion, whether you talk real estate or you talk any other industry, the critical thing is metrics for investors. I think show the money that circularity is a better business, and it's a better business not just in the mid-long run, but it's a better business in the very short run.
Is that only financial?
Well, not just financial. I think that indicators, they have to couple what I said before, the non-financial and the financial aspects, you know. So one of the biggest challenges in the sustainability historically has been how to translate sustainability impacts into money values, you know. And I'm not just talking about money, I'm talking about capital in general, how we can regenerate capital, you know. So things like biodiversity loss, or things like water footprint, or new ways of measuring embodied carbon in materials. They are critical things, but we have to translate this into the investor language and the financial language. And just mention, I mean, when you talk about changing some rules or breaking some rules, for instance, one of the big rules to be, to be broken, in my opinion, is the way that the circular buildings are being evaluated.
No, totally agree. Totally agree. Maybe Cyril, can you comment on that? Because in terms of valuation.
Sure. I mean, that's critical, and that's what I basically was saying just before. And perhaps as you require the idea of making valuation more compatible with this new ecosystem. It really requires education. It requires transparency, and it requires probably leverage and training from all the investor community. That's my feeling. because all these aspects are currently not sufficiently taken into account in financial models, and that's critical that the financial community take this into its hands in the future to factor and properly value it.
Thanks, Cyril. Clear view, if you ask me. Cédric, what is your one future? What is for you critical for the future of circularity? And maybe Ignasi, can you put it on mute again?
Okay, thank you. I will stress out the collaboration, the collective action, because one investor cannot change the world alone. He has to have a supply chain. He has to have this common language Ignasi mentioned. But it's about the collective action. So we have to build collective action hubs in order to go together to this new world. So this that I will stress out. Nobody can do without a good supply chain and a supply chain who understands what is the final goal.
And how can we achieve that collaboration? What is necessary in your view?
Oh, I do think that maybe if Ignasi is working on a Spanish booster, or there is a German booster, whatever, we have to join and to make it available at a European level. I do think that there is, in translation, in an interpretation, a real estate interpretation of the circular economy that the European Union wants, we have to build a collaboration hub, but practical collaboration hub throughout the real estate market.
Maybe Ignasi, is there a Spanish booster? I don't know actually.
I'm the Spanish booster.
Okay, so
well, I take the words from Cédric. I think he's right. I think collaboration is the name of the game. We all know that, you know. I think, for instance, EAG is getting global now, so we're going to be operational in France very soon. I mean, we are already doing some projects in France, so good opportunity to get connected with Cédric and all the different players in the market. Absolutely, we need critical mass. So critical mass needs collaboration all along the value chain. Critical mass is the game changer here, you know. So I think we all agree on that. The only thing I want to highlight here is that we also need the business case. So we need incentives for a business-driven approach of things, you know. I mean, we are running a private company that we're getting bigger by the day, you know, and we need a business case supporting all the different actions, investments, and collaborations we want to put in the marketplace, you know. So I think that, and transparency, as has been mentioned already, I think transparency, again, also, both upside, upwards and downwards, you know. So we also need transparency in the way we are measuring things, and we need to get a little bit of a common language on how to assess things, measure things, how to measure impact, and this kind of stuff, you know. And
Thanks for that, Ignasi. And I think Wout already popping up. So thank you, Ignasi, Cédric, and Cyril for being here. And I think Wout, over to you again.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was an amazing panel about the future of circularity.